in the southern cities of Bengaluru and Chennai. Does the urban vote matter in India's cities and these cities specifically? Welcome everyone to our special programming in the run-up to elections 2019. Joining me on the show today to talk about the main issues facing the voters in Chennai and Bengaluru are Sridhar Pabisetti. He's a public policy and urban governance specialist. We also have with us Tara Krishnaswamy, co-founder Citizens of Bengaluru, CFP. V. Ravichandar, he's the urban affairs expert, and Sumant Raman, television anchor person and commentator, political analyst. Gentlemen and lady, thank you very much for joining me. Before I come to you, let me just cull out some of the big issues which are facing these two cities. And it's really no secret that top of Bengaluru's issues is the severe water crisis that the city faces, water tables vanishing, Bengaluru's lakes fuming and burning, poor traffic management, that comes at number 2. No respite from traffic snarls, which of course leads to poor road infrastructure as well. And depleting green cover seems to be a big issue with citizens of the city. Now let's come to Chennai. And guess what tops the list here? Running out of drinking water, depletion of lakes and rivers, haphazard urban planning, traffic and road accidents, and lack of public transport. So that's the list, and of course, of the top concerns, the most pressing concern for both these cities is the water crisis. Mr. Ravichandar, is it any surprise at all that water seems to be topping the list of urban issues for both these cities when it comes to election 2019?
Not at all, Manisha, because you see, water, apart from being an emotive subject, is an extremely important need, and we have mismanaged the water management for decades. We don't have conservation measures, our lakes are polluted, we don't have groundwater recharge measures and the like, and the population is growing in these cities. So the stress on water is very apparent, and if not addressed, has the scope to derail the Indian growth story.
Tara Krishnaswamy, as a co-founder of Citizens for Bengaluru, my question is that if I look at the manifesto of the national parties, civic issues and granular issues do not make it to that list. It is employment, generation, it's growth, it's rural, it's agrarian crisis, all of those things. My question is, you must be meeting the local representatives and those who are standing for elections. Are they aware of these issues? Does any one of them recognize water as a big critical issue for Bengaluru?
They are very well aware of these issues. Unfortunately, it is not clear that anything at all has been done about it. In fact, the master plan of Bangalore, which is still in draft format and has, repeatedly been devised and revised, believe it or not, doesn't take into account water at all. When they plan for population growth, when they plan for the land use, when they plan and decide, where the resources go, integrated planning is not done. So things like water or drainage or transport and mobility are not considered at all within the plan. It is no surprise then that, even the local manifestos through the national manifestos completely lack that integrated approach. The other big problem is there isn't a good understanding and implementation of decentralization, which means where the decisions need to be made, where the requirements need to be rolled up, neither is happening, which is why you have places where there is water being wasted and then there are places where there is not enough water being available, right? So we have both ends of the problem.
All right. So local manifestos also not reflecting these issues. Sridhar Pabisetti, what do you do then? I mean, what are your expectations from the local or the next lot of elected leaders? These are the people in power who have the power to make those changes or bring about some policy changes. Are you expecting anything at all?
I've spent the last week and a half interacting with all the contestants who will represent Bengaluru's 3 different constituencies. I haven't had the chance to meet the 4th constituency yet. Unfortunately, everybody seems to have arrived from Alice in Wonderland. They seem to be bought into this narrative telling that Bengaluru grew overnight and we were not able to plan. And this is a shocking denial that they live in, because any house that you build in a city, you have to run behind your urban local body for your plan approvals. You have to go to your development authority for understanding what kind of land use is permitted there. You are supposed to go to your water body, etc. So now, when I've ran around all these different agencies and built my home, Tomorrow you are saying that, oh, you know what, I haven't provisioned for water and mobility. What are you doing? And this is the fundamental question that is now grown into such a huge proportion, as you outlined at the start, saying that Bengaluru and Chennai are going through similar crisis. And this crisis is going to hit every urban city, and all our political representatives and wannabe representatives are really buried their heads in the sand. Now let's ask a simple question. What is our urban planning approach? Migration is in thing. It's the order of the day. It's been for the last decade or so, and it will continue to be the single biggest factor that will affect the quality of life in the coming decades. People will move from the hinterland to cities searching for jobs, and you are not even ready to accept them, count them, provision for them. As Tara has mentioned earlier on the revised master plan for Bengaluru, the single biggest thing, and which we were personally involved in the fight, was that the manner in which they went about doing the revised master plan itself was unconstitutional. And hence we were able to obtain a stay from the court, and the planning authority denied this for 5 years and did not acknowledge this problem. At last we had to go to the court. We wrote to them letters after letter. So you have all these decision-making bodies really not paying heed either to the citizens nor to the Constitution of India. Right? So the 74th Amendment,
that's a huge
many
allegation.
people wake up as if it hasn't happened in India, maybe it happened in Pakistan, right? So,
all right, we'll come back to that matter, but I think that's a big highlight that, these are not even, master plans are getting made and they're probably not even fully constitutional or compliant with the Constitution. I'm going to move to Chennai, Sumant Raman. Just looking at some of the figures that we have, February 2019, the daily water needs of Chennai city is 830 million litres per day. Now, the city water supply is 550 million litres per day. Shortage is of 280 million litres per day. Whenever you have shortage, it's bound to happen that you will have profiteering, you will have mafia, and that's exactly what Chennai citizens are today subjected to. And one is really now toggling whether is it Chennai or is it Bengaluru, which is going to go the Cape Town way, or day zero day first. So what's happening in your city? I mean, any of the contestants aware of the ground reality have anything in their mind to address it?
I think, see, the water issue in Chennai is not a new one. It is over 30 to 40 years old. And, we had the Telugu Ganga scheme to bring water from the Krishna River. That was in the period when MGR was alive, when N.T. Ramarao was alive. Since then, see, the big difference between Chennai and Bangalore is Chennai has the option of desalination plants. We have 2 of them functioning, but they are only giving about 220 million litres a day. The requirement that you mentioned, that 830, is actually gone up now. It's about 1100 million litres a day of water that the city of Chennai needs. It is currently receiving half of that. And the problem is, it's very, very simple. In 2015, Ms. Jayalalitha announced 2 desalination plants, one of 400 million litre capacity and another of 150 million litre capacity. We are now in 2019 and construction of either of these plants is yet to start. 4 years have gone by and there has been very little activity. There have been some matters going back and forth and court cases and so on. There was a new reservoir which was supposed to be built. That was supposed to be inaugurated in 2016. We are now in 2019. It is stuck in land acquisition issues. So I think we have a huge problem. The 2 key issues are, one, as you rightly mentioned, water is a very profitable business. And most of this is sort of indirectly controlled by politicians and so on. So the will to sort of, put in place these 2 desalination plants. These 2 desalination plants will provide half the water supply that the city requires, 550 million litres a day. And nothing, very little has been done on this. This is the thing which can simply solve the water problem to a large extent on a permanent basis. Like, for instance, these 220 million litre plants have 110 million 2 plants have solved the problem to a sizable extent in some localities of South Chennai. So why can't the government implement them? It's a huge question.
So what I'm hearing, Sumant, is that it's just an implementation issue. At least in Chennai's case, the solution is staring at the face. It's not as complicated as Bangalore, which is losing its water bodies and dramatically.
Yeah. No, Chennai is also losing its water bodies due to a variety of reasons, most chiefly encroachment. Even the rivers have been encroached, as we saw in 2015 after the floods, when we went around to see the width of the rivers in certain areas. And on the plan, at some places it was 300 and 400 feet, but actually it was only 30 feet on the ground. The rest had all been encroached. So we do have a similar problem to Bangalore in many ways. The point is, the solution for Chennai is a lot easier with desalination. And would you believe it, the total cost of those two plants together, 550 million litres, is just 12,000 crore rupees.
Wow.
For a city of Chennai, that is nothing at all. And the tragedy is, it has been allowed to rot. I think it is sheer bureaucratic inefficiency that has allowed this to happen. I would not say politicians were against this in a big way, but the bureaucrats have done zilch in the last 2 years. Then one of the vendors went to court, and that dragged on. So it's still not started.
But Subhath, I can understand that there's bureaucracy which can be blamed to a large extent, but if there is political will, I'm sure the political leaders can put the pressure and get the bureaucrats to work. I mean, that is possible. Let me shift focus back to Bangalore as well. Mr. Ravichandar, I mean, it seems that Chennai clearly has a twin issue of flooding and water shortage. A solution which can be implemented, 12,000 crores, again, not a large number or big amount, but look at Bengaluru. It is far more complicated. I mean, in terms of where do you get your water, you're always fighting for it. Disappearing lakes, interconnectivity between water bodies is disappearing. Your policy makers or anybody who comes to power has a far more complicated job. Would you agree? Or do you think that the solutions there are also simple? It's just a question of implementation.
No, it's not at all simple. It's pretty complicated. As you rightly mentioned, the interconnection of lakes are broken. The lakes are polluted, silted up. The sewage is going into these kind of lakes, and our solution is we'll get it from Kaveri, and once that's over, we'll get it from Yatinole, and after that is over, maybe Sharavati or the Mangalore coast. All those kind of things are being thought of. Clearly, there's an issue, Manisha, but I really think at the core of this issue, if you want to fix it on the implementation point, is unless cities are empowered, the third tier of city government. You know, Sridhar spoke about the 74th constitutional amendment. I feel we need to go even beyond that. And if this is a a parliament election, the one thing that MPs can agree on and do is saying that we will empower the third tier of city government. We'll have directly elected mayors and the like. So my main case really here from a point of view of a parliamentary election is, can you stand up collectively and say that we will empower the third tier of city government, almost along the lines of the 73rd Amendment, go beyond the 74th. If you want to fix a city, whether it's water or mobility, you need local ownership and accountability, and that will only come with governance and administrative reforms.
Sridhar Papisetti, you were talking about the amendments themselves. Why is it? I mean, we've had the Panchayati Raj. It seems that local rural governance has far more powers than city governance. Is that true?
The challenge with 73rd Amendment was that the vote banks were clearly defined, and it was on the expenditure side. You know, what happened was that it was more about how will you spend money, be it Manrega, be it other developmental works, etc. So the government had more control on it. As far as 74th Amendment has been, it's also on the revenue side, right? The cities are the biggest cash cow for any government. If you see the tussles that city governments have with the state governments, it's all about of saying that, you know, while I am generating all the economic wealth, you don't allow us to even meet our basic needs and survival needs for our own well-being, and you're always very, very keen to siphon it off to the rural India. It's very difficult in India to kind of balance this narrative of saying that how do we take the rural folks along with urban imperatives. As we are seeing, many people from rural India are migrating into urban India, and they're finding that they are here only because of jobs, but their quality of life is worse than how it was in the villages. So they're caught in, they're in a catch-22 situation. So this being the real crux of the issue, agreeing to what Ravi said about saying that devolution of powers is the ultimate way forward, I would only urge that we should unite in our voice and say that we need counter magnets of urban growth. I would also stretch myself and say that we need to create 100 planned cities across India that are newer, that are better manageable, that where you can really put urban governance at the forefront and not really be caught up with saying that how will I fix the travesties of the past 4 decades, of the past 7 decades. The Bengaluru Lake is a classic example, right? It's a 4-decade problem. But no government has been able to keep the best foot forward. Everybody is pointing fingers to each other, and we are saying, when will you even wake up to start doing the first thing? Unfortunately, it's only been courts leading the way, neither the governments nor the bureaucrats.
My God.
So when will we do this? The political will has to prevail. If you have seen some of the most powerful prime ministers and chief ministers, they have actually made their bureaucracy work.
Lots looking at whether the urban vote matters. Well, to begin with, it's quite painful but true. Urban voters, especially so-called educated voters, do not step out for voting in the same numbers as rural voters do. Many of the urban voters feel the system is broken and voting is a futile exercise. We are urging urban voters to not ignore 2019 elections. They do matter. Cities like Chennai and Bengaluru, where citizen engagement is very high in city governance, it matters even more. Sumant, I'm going to come back to you. I mean, I've always felt that southern cities are far more engaged when it comes to cities governance. Would you agree with our panelists? We were speaking before the break that you need to have probably more powers in the hand of city governance, maybe have a mayoral system. Is that, we've been talking about this for last 10 years, have a mayor for the city. But do you think that's the panacea of all our problems?
I don't think that is a panacea, but I certainly agree that that needs to be done. I mean, greater powers to the local bodies must be, I mean, that is the essence and spirit of the constitution itself, that powers must be devolved down to the local bodies. Chennai, I mean, Tamil Nadu, for instance, is the most urbanized state in the country, and Chennai has been expanding dramatically. The point is, people have 2 issues. One, there is a certain level of being reconciled that we've elected so many different governments, nobody has done anything significant to solve these issues. So, for instance, in Chennai, people are reconciled to getting their 2 potfuls of water after standing for 4 hours or 3 hours in the queue. So, I think that needs to change. People need to be more proactive, and there's also the problem of money for votes. So, politicians at some level know that, even if civic issues have not been addressed, they can still win on the basis of paying people off. So I think that's a huge problem. The urbanization development has been in complete and flagrant violation of virtually every rule there is in the development rules, guidelines or books. I'll give you a simple example. In 2015, after the floods, they were submerged. And there was a huge hue and cry saying that the corporation of the city had not desilted the stormwater drains. The commissioner of corporation came on television and said, it's very unfair to blame us because these areas have been built without stormwater drains. Imagine the number of rules that have been violated, the number of people who made money on this, and nobody has been held accountable. Nobody has been punished for gross violation, encroachment on river bodies. And believe me, there are large colleges, there are engineering colleges built on riverbeds in complete flagrant violation.
Therefore,
at some point, Sumant, this will catch up with you.
Therefore, Sumant, and to all the other panelists, Tara, let me bring you in here. You talked about master plan and the missing master plan and unplanned growth. But here, there's an even bigger problem. There seems to be a nexus between the development authorities and the ones who are giving permissions, whether it's for roads, traffic, construction, water, anything, and there's gross violation of norms and rules. How do you stop that? It's a very, very cozy nexus, and our judicial system is already crunching with the weight. I mean, how many times do you go to court?
Manisha, anything Chennai can do, Bangalore, here we in Bangalore can do better. So if you look at Sumant talking about engineering colleges being built on water bodies, we have our own government building stadiums and bus stands on water bodies. Okay, so we have public property on water bodies, not just private properties on water bodies. So the nexus is just not between the public officials and the private money bags. It is deep within the government itself, right? So we have significant problems there. But I think if we look at it, if we go deep enough into the problems, it can overwhelm us. There are some simple things that can be done.
Okay.
Going back to the comment about water, while it is extremely complicated, it's not simple to solve the water problem for any city. There are a lot of simple things that can be done that will go a long way. For example, Bangalore gets a lot of water through rain. We get almost sufficient water through rain, and we don't catch it at all. We don't have rainwater harvesting. We don't have open wells. There's significant improvement to our water situation that will happen simply by catching the water, which we are refusing to do, right? Those are simple things that can be done. The second thing is, the answer to really complicated problems is to decentralize them, right? In the era of distributed computing, right, there is no reason why. In fact, I'm very happy with the question you asked. What is it that the manifestos of the national parties or at the parliamentary level, what do they have for cities? It's a good thing if they have nothing for cities except that they promise to decentralize down to the lowest level. I think the principle of subsidiarity is the principle that is most ignored in this country. We have to make accountability at the lowest level so that the citizens living on that road can catch the collar of the violators. The minute you say the National Highways Authority is responsible for the road that is going through my neighborhood, then who do you want me to go catch? You want me to go all the way to Mr. Nitin Gadkari? That's not possible, and that doesn't make any sense at all. So the first thing that needs to be done in these manifestos is to say they would decentralize state issues to the state and the city issues to the city themselves, and the cities must be responsible for their own destiny.
I'm going to conclude on that because, this is the first city-level discussion we've had where we got an exact solution to the larger problem that our cities are facing. Well, we are hoping that will be a solution that devolve power to the city levels, hold local, authorities accountable for all the public services. Probably it is time to look at a mayor system for cities. Sridhar Pabisetti, Tarak Krishnaswamy, V. Ravichandar and Sumant Raman, it's a pleasure to have you ahead of election 2019 and get to know what is it that we do want from the national leaders for our cities. Well, all that I'm going to conclude by saying that India is rapidly urbanizing. By 2030, we're going to have 50% of our population residing in urban areas. So if we don't devolve power to the local authorities, I think we are going to be in trouble and our cities will face a big crisis. Hopefully, our national leaders are hearing this and will do something about it in the next term. Thank you so much for joining me.